I'm so excited to have you on this live video, and you are all welcome to this live video. I will be having an exciting time together on this live video, and let's get started with what we are having to discuss. So before I go into what we have, let me kindly know where you are watching from, and I would like to give you shout outs as we go on this video. So we'll be having an exciting time as we go on. So there are a couple of things that I want to point out in this video, and I want you to pay attention to me as I go on. So first of all, I will be explaining how you can actually study once and never forget. I know it sounds some kind of impossible, but then it is possible for you to study once and never forget, only if you follow the steps that I'll be showing you in this video. And if you follow my step, my framework, it will actually help you do that perfectly. So that is that about that. So before I go on, let me kindly know where you're watching from. And I would love to give you a shout out on this live video as we go on this live video. So first of all, I'm Abayomi, and I've been on this content creation journey for a while now, and I've actually given tips to students both online and offline on how they can study effectively. And through all these things that I've been giving them, they've actually made use, they have actually used them, and it has actually been working for them over time. And before now, I was not always like this. I was always a student that was not actually serious academically, and people think that I'm not the serious type then. But over time, I was able to improve, and I was able to gather my knowledge in a way that I can provide to you now, today. So sometimes when I was in university, I've crammed all night and didn't work. There are times that I'll get the exam hall and I'll not even be able to remember what I studied. And in fact, it's really affected my grades at that point in time until I was able to improve on that. I was able to improve on that, and I was able to gather the relevant knowledge and things that will help you study. So I have a couple of tips here, and I'll be breaking it down as I go on in this video. So now, like I said, I was not like this before. I was a student that have been struggling to study, and over time, I was able to improve based on what I have gathered, based on my own research. And because of that, I was able to discover a particular framework that actually works for me, PAT, which is CART. C stands for concentration, A stands for association, R stands for repetition, and T stands for testing. I was able to discover this framework on my journey to improve, and I've actually used this framework most of the time. And I've even given students to use this framework, and it has actually been really useful for them as they go on in their study. So that is what I'll be explaining to you, and that is exactly what I have in my ebook, which I'll be releasing tomorrow on 15th. If you order the ebook, you get a free one-on-one study plan, a free one-on-one personalized plan with me, and also you also get access to my study templates, which I'll send to you when you pre-order this ebook. You can click the link in the description to get access to this ebook as we go on this video. So before I even go to my framework and how I was able to use it to improve my grades, and I'll be breaking them down one by one, I would like to point out something which you need to pay attention to before you even go into the framework. Because if you don't pay attention to these things that I'll be talking about right now, even if you apply the framework, it will not work for you. Because even before now, in my journey on improvement and how to study effectively, I watched so many videos online at that point. I did so many things, but I didn't take all these three things into consideration, which I'll be showing you. Because of that, those things didn't work. And those three things are intention, your emotion, and your attitude. These three things are very important before anything can work for you, because you have to look inward before you embark on a particular method that will actually work for you. Because if you clarify everything that you need to pay attention to, if you clarify these three things, it will actually help you use this method that I'll be showing you in this video. So now let's look at intention. And what I have here is learning is not just mental, it is emotional and intentional. And intentional in the sense that you have to have a purpose. You have to know while you are studying. You have to know while you are in school. You have to know, you have to have a goal. How many subjects are you studying? What are the grades you want to have in each of these subjects? You need to pay attention to all those things. You need to know what exactly you want. If you don't know what you want, you will not know how to apply the tip that I'll be showing you, because it is what you want that will actually motivate you to apply this particular tip I'll be showing you. So you have to have an intention, you have to have a purpose, you have to know what you want, you have to set goals, short-term or long-term goals. Your long-term goal is that maybe when you graduate, you want to use the certificate to get a job or something, or you want to use the certificate, or you want to use the knowledge you got in school to do certain things. That is the long-term goal. The short-term goal is you want to get certain grades that will help you achieve the long-term goal. So you have to have the intention and you have to be focused in that thing. So that is what I mean by intentional. So you have to be intentional. Before now, I wasn't intentional. And even after reading all the things, even after reading several books, even after doing several things, those things didn't work because I didn't take that particular thing into consideration. So the next thing is emotion. Now the emotion is, how do you feel about what you want to get? Do you feel motivated? Do you feel motivated towards it? When you visualize what you want to achieve after being intentional, how do you feel? So you have to constantly visualize what you want, that I want to have this, then you can visualize them. Through how you feel, or when you feel good about it, then it will push you to want to improve. Then that is when all these tips that I'll be showing you will come in, and it will help you make good decisions. You have to think about how you feel about the goal, the purpose that you set to achieve. And what is your mindset? You have to have a positive mindset. You have to have a growth mindset. You have to, even if you are not doing well in school, you have to always understand that even if you are not doing well in school, you have to always tell yourself that you can improve as you go on in your academics. So you have to have a positive mindset. You have to be intentional, and you have to have a particular goal that you want to set for yourself. So that is that about that. So if you are just joining, I would like to know where you're watching from. And if you are just joining, I would like to know where you're watching from, and please provide your name so that I can give you a shout out as we go on in this live video. And if you are getting value, please smash the like button as we go on, and let me know where you're watching from before I go on with this live video. And also, before I go on, I have a particular ebook which I'll be releasing tomorrow, and I want you to pre-order the ebook as we go on. This ebook will actually help you to learn how to study, and it will give you a right track on what to do and what not to do while you are studying. So you can click the link in the description right now to pre-order the ebook as we go on. So now let's continue what we have for this live video right now. So now I haven't talked about the intentional, the emotion, and the attitude. Now we need to actually look into how the brain learns. Now the brain learns in loops. What do I mean by this? When you are studying, people used to think that your brain is just a box where you drop in information constantly. Like you can just drop, when you read, you can just drop the information. No, the brain consists of neurons and synaptic connections. When you learn, you are making neurons, you are establishing synaptic connections. And the time it takes for these connections to actually get established in your brain. It takes time. So that is why I used to tell students that it is the learning that takes time that it is learning that takes time that is more durable. Any learning any learning process that you are doing, and it doesn't take enough time for you to encode that information, it is not going to be durable, and it is not a long term, it's not going to be logged in into your long-term memory. So learning takes time. And if you are learning and you feel like you are not getting it right now, it is normal for you to face that particular challenge. It is normal. So it is your ability to keep pushing and move on and actually understand how your brain works, because I'll be breaking them down in this live video before I show you the steps that I'll be showing you right now. So the first thing that your brain goes, because like I said earlier, your brain learns in a loop, and your brain goes through three processes when learning. We have the encoding stage, we have the retaining stage, and we have the retrieval stage. You need to pay attention to each of these processes, and you need to actually know what to do in each of these processes, because it is what you do in each of these processes that will actually help you retain the information better. And that is exactly what is in my ebook, which I'll be releasing tomorrow. So I'll be giving you like a snapshot of it, so you can click the link and pre-order right now. So the first thing is encoding, that is taking new information. And whenever you are learning something new right now, it first goes into your short-term memory. Now, your short-term memory is limited in capacity. There's a limited amount of information that your short-term memory can receive at the time. That is why a lot of students, they keep studying, and it gets to a point they say that their memory is full. Your memory is not full. Your short-term memory can be full, but your long-term memory cannot be full. And the aim of every study is to move what you study from your short-term memory to your long-term memory. So if you get to a point that your short-term memory, or maybe you start feeling headache, or you feel like you are overwhelmed with the information, it's because your short-term memory has limited capacity. And this short-term memory can only receive 4 to 7 items at a time. Anything aside from this item, then this is what we call memory overload. You start experiencing memory overload. So how can you actually receive information, encode the relevant amount of information in such a way that you can drive them to the long-term memory? That is the aim of this video. Like I said, how to study once and never forget. The aim is for you to study what you learn. The aim for you to study and drive what you are learning to the long-term memory. And that is what I'm going to be helping you to do in this video. So you have to know the importance of chunking. You have to know how to chunk your information. You have to know how to simplify the information while you are encoding. And in this encoding stage, attention is very, very important. You have to pay attention, because if you are encoding your information, the more you pay attention to the information, the more the brain will be able to map on that information, and actually the more the brain will be able to map on that information and the more the brain will be able to map on that information and actually retain what you learn. That is that. So you have to know the importance of chunking, and you have to know when to actually stop. You have to know how to move whatever you are learning from the short-term memory to the long-term memory. So that is that. That is all about encoding. For encoding, you have to pay full attention. You have to study in a way that you can chunk in order for you not to experience memory overload. And also, you have to know when you are already getting overwhelmed by the amount of information you are getting into your brain. And at this encoding stage, this is where most students make mistake. And this is why you usually forget anything when you get to the exam hall. Now, at this encoding, if you do not give yourself time to process the information, for example, your exam could be tomorrow. Your exam could be tomorrow, and most students, they are fond of the habit of actually reading few days to their exam. So when you are reading, it goes to the short-term memory, but since not giving, because the time it takes for your brain to move something from the short-term memory to your long-term memory, it takes time. The process takes time. You have to consolidate information, and this involves sleep, which I'll be explaining later. So if you do not give your brain time to process information and your exam is tomorrow and you read now, there are tendencies that you forget because the information is likely to fade up in the short-term memory. So you need to study early in order for anything you study to stay in your brain and in order for you to be able to remember in your exam. It is very important. So another thing that we'll be looking at aside from encoding is retention. Now, after you've gotten the information, you've paid attention, you've done everything, I actually dropped a particular video on encoding. You can check it on my channel. Yeah, I actually dropped a particular video on chunking. So you can check it on my channel as we go. So retention. For you to be able to retain the information, there are several things you need to do. Now, there's a mistake a lot of students do at this stage. And the mistake is students tend to reread the information. They tend to reread the book without actually they try to reread the book, and they feel like the more they reread the book, the more they will be able to retain the information. But the kind of repetition they are doing is rereading, which is wrong. But now, I will advise you to use the repetition that you'll be using, use it in terms of trying to retrieve the information by recalling the information from your brain. I will explain that earlier as we go on. So there's what we call consolidating through repetition. Now, like I said you should read very early from the beginning of the semester. Read very early. Now, when you read very early throughout, for example, you can have 5 months. You have a 5 month space that you'll be running for a particular semester. Within that 5 months, if you start early and you are reading what you need to study for that particular exam, just 2 hours every single day, those 2 hours will compound together, and as you go on, you are interrupting the tendencies of you forgetting the information, and the information stays well. So in order for you to consolidate through retention, you need to space out your learning. And when you space out your learning, you are giving your brain time to consolidate the information. And this is where sleep comes in. And this is where you need to create the habit of studying. Because if you don't create the habit of studying, there is no how you'll be able to go on within that period and make sure that you study and make sure that whatever you learn gets solidified. So you need to be able to build a good study habit. And also sleep is very important at this point in time. There was a point in time that like I said, I was not a student I was not the good student at that point in time. I was not someone that was good. But then I didn't sleep. There was a particular time I didn't sleep. And because of that, I failed that particular exam because I didn't give my brain enough time to process the information. And because of this, I forgot everything in the exam. So in order for you, just if you are not like, from everything I'll be explaining in this video, if you are not taking anything now, it will just take this away. For you to be able to retain anything, you need to start early and you need to study at interval until the day of your exam in order for your brain to consolidate the information and lock it into your long-term memory. So it is in the retaining stage that you bring in what you need to learn from the short-term memory to the long-term memory. And for you to be able to do this effectively, you need to space out your learning. And during the spacing out, you need to build study habits, you need to sleep, and you need to repeat. And when I say repeat, I don't mean rereading. I mean trying to retrieve the information. And this is where active recall is very important. If you want more information about these things that I'm explaining, you can check out my ebook. The link is in the description, and I explain everything in depth. I'll be releasing the ebook tomorrow, but if you pre-order now, you will get a free one-on-one coaching with me, and also you get a study plan template that will actually help you study effectively. So if you are just joining, let me know where you are watching from. Kindly kindly comment where you're watching from, and I'll give you a shout out in this video as we go on. And let me know where you're watching from. So that's that about that. That's that about that. So now let's also go to the next one, which is retrieval. Now, one thing is for you to retain the information. Another thing is for you to be able to retrieve the information. And in order for you to be able to retrieve the information, just give me a second, please. Just give me a second. And in order for you to be able to retrieve the information, you need to strengthen the memory. And you can only do this if you apply some certain study techniques that I'll be explaining. So retrieval of information has to do with active recall. This is where active recall comes in, because the more you retrieve the information from the memory, the more you'll be able to the more you retrieve the information from memory, the more that memory gets solidified, and it reduces the tendency of forgetting the information. So if you want to retrieve the information, you need to apply active recall. And let me just give you a step-by-step process on how you can do this. Whenever you are reading, don't reread the information consistently. Just don't open your book and reread the information consistently. Try as much as possible to close the book and try to walk around and recall the information from your memory. If you can do it perfectly, then that information has been solidified. If you cannot do it, then go back and do and take the process again. Now, aside from doing that, another way you can do that is to do a brain dump. What is a brain dump? A brain dump is where you study something and you pick a sheet of paper and you try to retrieve what you studied by just writing it in your book. When you do that consistently, it will help you retain the information perfectly. And also, another way you can do this is to set practice questions for yourself. When you set practice questions for yourself, it will actually help you do that. So I'm receiving a particular message right now. Usman, I'm very excited to have you. You are watching from Malaysia, and I'm excited to have you, and I'm very happy that you are watching this live video on this. So if you have any question, you can drop it. So at the end, I'll provide answers to these questions as we go on. So I was explaining brain dump the other time, and brain dump is when you try to pick a sheet of paper and write everything you know about that particular thing. So that is one way you can do a retrieval process. So we've actually gone through how the brain learns, and I said the brain learns in loops, that is encoding, retaining, and retrieving. And I've actually pointed out the important thing that you need to pay attention to in this process. So now I will now go into the now let me launch into the techniques, that particular framework that I actually discovered for myself. And the particular framework is called CAT, like I explained earlier, which is CART, concentration, association, and testing. Now, this is a framework for deep learning. And in order for you to be able to encode anything that you need to study very well, you need to focus and you need to eliminate distractions. Distractions can impede your ability to be able to assimilate anything you are trying to learn. Now, a lot of there are different views about this. Some students study better when they have music on. Some students study better when they don't have music on. It depends on what you want. So try as much as possible to experiment with each of these. Do you study better when you watch music? Do you study better when you don't watch music? So try to experiment with this. And also, another thing that you need to pay attention to is association. And this association works well if you try to link what you are learning now to what you've learned in the past. And this will actually help you understand the information better. Your ability to be able to link what you are learning now to what you've learned before, or link it to a particular experience that you've had in the past, it will really help you to retain the information very well. And it will even help you understand, because when it comes to understanding, in order for you to understand, you need to be able to link old knowledge to new knowledge. For example, you could be learning something in mathematics, just for example, and you are learning something about simultaneous equation. Now, in order for you to understand simultaneous equation, you need to understand collecting the items. You need to understand divide both sides. You need to be able to know how to open the bracket. So if you do not understand old knowledge, there is no how you'll be able to understand new knowledge. So that is that about that. And also, when it comes to, and another thing about my framework is repetition. Like I said, repetition by retrieval, not repetition by rereading. And the only perfect way you can do this is by using spaced repetition. And spaced repetition builds long-term memory. Now, the whole essence of me explaining this for you is for you to be able to build long-term memory. I do not support cramming, because it is something that is not effective. And cramming is when you are trying to put in a large amount of information in a very short time, and you expect to remember in your exam when the exam comes. It is not an effective way of studying. So I will advise you to space out your learning. And that is why I said earlier that you should start early. If you start early, space it out, it will help you retain the information perfectly. And one important way, which is the most effective of all, and which we have actually used, because if you concentrate, if you associate and you repeat, and you don't test yourself, there is no how you'll be able to ascertain that you've learned something. And this is where illusion of knowing comes in, because you can experience illusion of knowing. What is illusion of knowing? Illusion of knowing is when you are so fluent about what you are reading. Like I said, you should not reread, because rereading leads to illusion of knowing. So if, in order for you to prevent illusion of knowing, you need to test. And one way of testing is for you to give yourself quizzes. When you read something, test yourself, give yourself several questions that will help you. So it is from that questions that you provided. This is from the answers that you provided in those questions. We help you to know whether what you learned has been solidified or not. Then if not, go back to what you are reading and make sure that what you are reading gets solidified in your brain. That is that about that. So that's that about that. This is the time for Q&A. If you have any question, you can drop the question and I'll provide answers to it as I go on in this video. If you are just joining, let me know where you are watching from and provide your name and where you're watching from. I'll give you a shout out. And also, everything I'll be discussing so far, you can get it on the ebook. I provided the link. You can click the link and pre-order the ebook right now. And I'll be releasing the ebook tomorrow. But if you can pre-order the ebook right now, you get a free study plan that I'll be giving you and a one-on-one coaching session with me. And I'll give you personalized tip and guide you through your study session as we go on. Like I said, if you have any question, you can drop it right now before I leave this live video. If you have any question, you can drop it and I'll provide answers to it. And I'll reply with I'll reply. So I hope you got so much value from this video, because I've actually come to an end. We've come to the end of the live video, and if you've gotten so much value, please like the video and also please subscribe to the channel. You can also share to other people that you think this information will be useful for them. So thank you so much for watching, and I really appreciate you for joining this live video, and I'll be seeing you next time.